Imagine for a moment that your mind is like a vast ocean. Your thoughts are like waves on the surface of this ocean. Some waves are large and demanding, crashing onto the shore with great force. Others are small, gentle ripples, barely noticeable as they brush against the sand. Now, what if we simply observe these waves as they are, without trying to change them, without reacting to them? What would happen if we chose not to react to our thoughts? In the first part of our exploration, we consider the nature of thoughts themselves. Thoughts are the language of the mind, a constant stream of consciousness that dictates much of our experience. When we react to our thoughts, we often do so automatically, as if there's an invisible string pulling us along. We treat each thought as if it were a command, an imperative that must be followed or a problem that must be solved. However, when we step back and choose not to react, we create a space. In this space, we find freedom. It's a freedom that comes from understanding that thoughts, by their very nature, are transient. They come and go, like guests in the home of our mind. Some are pleasant, others are not, but they are all temporary. By not reacting, we can observe the pattern of our thoughts. We see which thoughts recur, which ones trigger emotional responses, and which ones pass by quietly without disturbing the deeper waters of our consciousness. This observation is the beginning of wisdom. It allows us to understand our mental habits, the pathways our mind likes to take, and the traps it sets for itself. Let's consider the practical implications of this. When we encounter a stressful thought, our immediate reaction might be to become anxious or to find a solution. This reaction can set off a chain of additional thoughts, each one building upon the last, until we are entangled in a web of worry. But what if, instead, we simply acknowledge the thought and let it pass? We might find that the anxiety loses its grip on us, that the urgency fades, and that we remain in a state of calm. Now, let us turn our attention to the impact of non-reaction on our emotional well-being. When we react to thoughts, especially those that are negative or distressing, we amplify their power. Our emotions become intertwined with these thoughts, and we may find ourselves in a state of emotional turbulence. But when we choose not to react, we give ourselves the opportunity to remain emotionally stable. This stability is not a form of numbness or detachment. Rather, it's an active engagement with our inner experience, but from a place of balance. It is the difference between being swept away by a wave and riding it with skill. In this place of balance, we can experience our emotions without becoming overwhelmed by them. We can feel sadness without becoming sadness, feel joy without clinging to joy. Let's take a moment to consider how powerful this can be in our interactions with others. When someone says something that might normally upset us, our habit is to react, perhaps with anger or defensiveness. But when we choose not to react, when we simply listen and let the words pass, we maintain our composure. This composure allows us to respond from a place of clarity and compassion rather than from a place of hurt or impulse. As we move forward, it is important to understand that not reacting to our thoughts is not about suppressing them. It's not about pretending they don't exist or pushing them away. It's about allowing them to be, acknowledging their presence, and then choosing not to engage with them in the usual, automatic way. In doing this, we may find that our thoughts begin to lose their power over us. They become less like commands and more like suggestions, which we can choose to follow or not. We become the masters of our own minds, rather than being at the mercy of every thought that arises. The art of presence. Navigating the currents of consciousness. Through mindfulness. In this second part of our exploration, we focus on the liberating practice of mindfulness and the profound effect it has when we refrain from reacting to our thoughts. Mindfulness is the art of being present, of observing our thoughts and feelings without judgment. It is in this practice that we can truly begin to understand the power of not reacting to our thoughts. Mindfulness teaches us to witness our mental events as they are, acknowledging their existence without allowing them to dictate our actions. Imagine you are sitting by the side of a river, watching the water flow by. Each thought is like a leaf floating on the water's surface, carried away by the current. If you reach out and grab a leaf, holding on to it, you disrupt the flow of the river. But if you simply let it pass, it drifts away, and the river remains unchanged. This is the essence of mindfulness, allowing thoughts to come and go without interference. In practice, mindfulness involves observing our breath, our body, our thoughts, and our feelings. When we anchor our attention to our breath, for example, we create a point of stability. Our breath becomes a refuge, a place to return to when we find ourselves swept away by our thoughts. As we pay attention to our breath, we may notice thoughts arising, but instead of reacting, we gently guide our focus back to the rhythm of our breathing. As we cultivate this practice, something remarkable happens. Our thoughts begin to slow down. The space between them grows wider, and in these gaps, we find peace. We discover that we do not need to fill every moment with thinking, that there is a profound silence that exists beneath the noise of our minds. This silence is not empty. It is full of potential. It is the fertile ground from which insight can arise. When we are not constantly reacting to our thoughts, we give ourselves the chance to see things as they really are. We gain clarity. We may find solutions to problems that seemed insurmountable, not by thinking harder, but by allowing the mind to be still. Now consider the effect of this practice on our relationships. When we listen to someone with mindfulness, we are truly present with them. We hear their words without immediately preparing a response. We give them the gift of our attention, which is one of the most precious gifts we can offer. This kind of presence can transform our interactions, creating deeper connections and understanding. Mindfulness also allows us to become aware of the stories we tell ourselves. We all have narratives that run through our minds, stories about who we are, what we need to be happy, what we fear. These stories are often based on past experiences or future anxieties, and they can shape our reality. But what if we chose not to react to these stories? What if we saw them as just that? Stories, not truths. By doing so, we free ourselves from the constraints of our narratives. We open ourselves up to new possibilities, to new ways of being. We are no longer confined to the identity we have constructed from our thoughts. We can redefine ourselves, moment by moment. In the next part, we will delve deeper into the transformative potential that lies in not reacting to our thoughts, and how this practice can lead us to a life of greater freedom and joy. Unveiling inner tranquility. The power of non-reaction. In this third part, we dive into the tranquil depths of our being to understand how non-reaction to thoughts can lead to an enduring inner peace. We are often told that to achieve peace, we must actively pursue it, as though it were a distant land to be reached with effort and toil. However, the practice of non-reaction invites us to consider that peace is not a distant place, but rather the very ground on which we stand. When we cease to react to our thoughts, we are not turning away from reality, we are turning towards it. We are meeting life with an open hand rather than a clenched fist. This openness is the key to inner tranquility. It's a state of being that doesn't depend on circumstances, but rather on our relationship with the present moment. Each time we encounter a thought and choose not to react, we are taking a step towards this tranquility. We are training ourselves to be at ease, regardless of what is happening in the theater of the mind. This ease is like a muscle that strengthens with practice, and the weights we lift are the myriad thoughts that arise each day. The practical benefits of this are immense. When we are not at the mercy of our reactions, we can approach challenges with a clear head. We can make decisions from a place of calm, without the pressure of inner turmoil. We can face life's ups and downs with a sense of grace and equanimity. Consider the last time you were in a stressful situation. Your thoughts may have been racing, each one feeding into a narrative of worry and fear. Now imagine if you had been able to step back and not react to those thoughts. Imagine if you could have remained still within the storm. That stillness is always available to us, and it is a source of great strength. Non-reaction also allows us to break free from the cycle of habitual responses. So often we react in the same way to the same triggers, as if we are following a script written long ago. By choosing not to react, we give ourselves the chance to write a new script, to respond to life in a way that is aligned with our deepest values and aspirations. This is a path of liberation. It is a path that leads us away from the tyranny of the reactive mind and towards the sovereignty of the conscious heart. When we live from this place of conscious choice, we are no longer buffeted by the winds of our thoughts. We can set a course based on our true north, guided by our inner compass. The journey towards non-reaction is not one of struggle, but one of gentle release. It is the art of letting go, of allowing thoughts to arise and fall without interference. This letting go is not a passive act. It is an act of profound courage. It requires us to trust in the wisdom of life, to believe that we are held even when we let go of the reins. In the final part of our exploration, we will delve into the ultimate freedom that comes from non-reaction and how this freedom can be the gateway to a life of authenticity and purpose. The zenith of stillness. Embracing the serenity of non-reaction. In this concluding segment of our exploration, we ascend to the zenith of stillness, where the serene practice of non-reaction reveals its most profound gifts, authentic living and a purposeful existence. Here we discover that the true essence of tranquility is not found in the absence of noise but within the harmony of our inner world, regardless of the outer chaos. The liberation that arises from non-reactivity is not a form of escapism. It is an invitation to engage with life more fully. It is the courage to face the world as it is, not as we wish it to be. This courage is born from a deep understanding that our reactions often cloud our perception, leading us away from the truth of the present moment and chaining us to the illusions of past and future. By mastering non-reaction, we not only encounter peace, but we also embrace authenticity. We become genuine actors in our own lives, no longer wearing the masks that our reactive selves might impose. Each moment is met with a raw and open heart, where our truest responses can emerge. In this space, we find the freedom to express our innermost selves, not swayed by the fleeting tides of thought, but moved by the deeper currents of our soul. Through purposeful non-reaction, we also find direction. Our purpose becomes clearer as the fog of reactivity lifts. The paths we choose are walked with intention, not out of habit or compulsion, but from a place of deliberate and mindful choice. Our actions thus gain potency, infused with the power of presence. We engage with our tasks, our relationships, and our passions with an invigorated sense of clarity and dedication. Imagine living each day with this kind of presence, where every interaction and every decision is infused with the fullness of your being. This is the potential that lies in non-reaction. It is not a passive state, but an active embrace of life's unfolding drama, a dance with the divine choreography of existence. In this heightened state of awareness, We also find that our relationships are transformed. Non-reaction fosters a space where understanding and compassion can flourish. We listen deeply, not just to the words of another, but to the silence between those words, to the emotions that stir beneath the surface. Our responses are not knee-jerk reactions, but thoughtful expressions of our connection with others. The practice of non-reaction is a journey, not a destination. It is a continual process of returning to the present, of recentering ourselves in the midst of life's constant flux. And as we return, again and again, we find that the peace we sought was never far away. It was always here, within the stillness of our own hearts, waiting for us to settle into its embrace. As we conclude this exploration, let it be known that the serenity of non-reaction is not an end in itself, but a beginning. It is the opening of a door to a life lived with depth, a life where each moment is saturated with the fullness of who we are. It is an invitation to step into the river of life and to flow with it, with grace, with power, and with a quiet joy that echoes in the silent spaces between our thoughts. Embrace this practice and watch as your life unfolds in ways you never thought possible. The zenith of stillness awaits, not as a lofty peak to be scaled, but as a sanctuary to be inhabited, a sanctuary that resides within you.